hCG Chica. Welcome back. We are at episode 37 now of the hCG interviews with everyday people. I've got Diane with me today. She's got a great story to share. A lot of it's going to be new to me as well. One of the neat things we're going to talk about is actually post weight loss surgeries too. Sometimes a lot of women, when they've lost, 60, 70, 100 pounds, they have excess skin. And so she's actually gone through a few procedures to have some of that removed so she can tell us firsthand experience about what the options are, what the recovery's like, and how it's, how it feels, how she feels about having it done. So she has lost actually a little over 100 pounds with the protocol. We're going to let her give us all the details in a minute. But anyway, so thanks for being with me today, Diane.
Thanks.
Yeah, so tell us just give us your basic stats, your age and height, where you started, at what weight with the diet, your size change, just all of that type of stuff.
Well, I did the diet 5 years ago, and at that time I was weighing in about, I think it was 267, and I had absolutely tried every diet there was under the sun for like the last 20 years. I mean, it wasn't just all of a sudden thing. This weight came on over years, and over those years I tried a lot of different things. And so anyway, I ended up at 267. I was 5'9.5", so pretty tall. And I was able to lose, and I guess it was around 7 to 8 months, I lost 102 pounds with hCG. It was the first diet ever to start working for me and continue. I mean, I tried other diets that worked for 20 pounds and then stopped.
Gotcha. Yeah. So with you're another one of those people then who I've interviewed a couple others who they had a big chunk and they really did take it off fairly quickly by kind of being on the protocol for longer periods of time with shorter breaks. Is that kind of what you ended up doing?
Yes, the first round that I did, I went strictly on protocol. It was the 43 days, like everyone says that you can do. And then I decided, I'd heard stories that your second round sometimes is not as good as the first one. So I went looking for a stronger drop company. I was just using over-the-counter homeopathic drops at the time, and I changed companies. And the company that I changed to suggested doing longer rounds up to 60 days if you had a lot to lose. And I thought, yeah, that's me. So I did the 60-day round and lost just as well. And so I then cycled, and I can't remember now, it was either 2 or 3 more 60-day rounds, whatever it took to get it off. But I started in August of 2011, and by February, I was at my goal weight.
That's amazing. That's like such a huge change,
Yeah, and I think for me, the reason that I kept going and didn't take a lot of breaks in between is because every other diet that I had ever tried had stopped working for me. So I was so afraid that this one was going to stop at any time, that I was going to get as much out of it as I could before that happened. And it just didn't happen. It kept going. And it also kept me on the straight and narrow. I never cheated one time. And I say, boy, if you can only get back to the way you were in the beginning, you were so faithful, and, but now it sort of seems like if you're going to do a round to drop a few vacation pounds, and you'll say, oh, well, I'll get back to it tomorrow. You're never quite the same. So the first go around, you should really stay focused, because that's when your heart and soul are completely in it, and it works then.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. I know that's so true. And it sounds like you were really in the zone.
You could not tempt me with anything. I mean, I was so in shock that the weight was coming off that, you couldn't tempt me with anything. But actually, the way I ended up doing the diet was my daughter did it first. My daughter and son-in-law did it to lose their baby weight, that they had put on when both of them were pregnant together. And so, and they told me they were going to do this product hCG, and so immediately I looked online and I read all this kind of funny stuff, and I said, no, I don't think you guys should do that, just diet. And so they were really adamant. They decided to do it. So I said, you just need to eat a healthy lifestyle. So I followed along. I did add more calories than what they did, but I basically did the same diet that they did. And then in 40 days, they had each lost almost 40 pounds, and I had lost 2 pounds.
Oh my God.
And I was like, oh, And I said, there is something wrong with me. There's something wrong, physically wrong with me. And so I said, just get me some of that stuff. I'll show you. So they ordered me the hCG. I tried it, and then I started losing a pound a day. So it was amazing. But hCG was the first thing ever to work for me. And I mean, as things went on, years later, I found out there is a reason I really believe why it did, and it's because it's hormone based. And turns out I had some hormonally, challenged issues. And so I really think that that's the one thing that was able to make me lose the weight was because of that. In fact, Dr. Simeon talks about a woman that was in his office. If you remember the story of the emaciated woman, she had a condition that it turns out that I have the same condition. And so she was not able to lose weight, but she was very slender on top and not on the bottom. And that's exactly what my stats were too. I was very large on the bottom and usually smaller on top. And so years later, just last year, I found out that I had something called lipedema, which is a fat disorder. And that turns out that had to be what this woman had. And I really believe that hCG addresses that. It's a fat that's resistant to diet and exercise. And hCG was the first thing that really targeted that and helped me to lose weight. And since then, I've talked to many other women that have this. They say 11% of all women could have this condition. It's where your body is abnormally shaped and you just have huge bottom. Sometimes people refer to it as stovepipe legs or, cankles. They don't have, that kind of a thing. It's where you get these abnormal fat pockets and saddle bags from hell, kind of thing. And anyway, but so many of them have said that the hCG diet has really been effective for them too. So it's interesting, but I think it all ties into the fact that it's, a hormonally based diet and that sometimes we just need, a little jump start, and I believe it does it. So,
Yeah, definitely. No, that's really helpful because, like you said, when it's hormonally based, just like when you have thyroid issues or adrenal issues, you have to actually address it with the hormones in order to, effectively take care of something. So this is
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's great too. I'm glad you shared about it's called lipedema, you said, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So any of you guys can research that out there too if you think it's similar. Because I think after you explained it to me, like, yeah, I definitely have seen women that I think that have that. And 11% is actually a pretty large percent.
It's huge. And I knew nothing about it until last summer. I was watching television and they said, news at 10, you might be fat and it might not be your fault. And I laughed and said, oh yeah. And they called it the fat disease. And I said, oh yeah, I got that. And then I watched it and my jaw just dropped because everything they were saying was like me. It was like, yeah, that's me.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's so cool that the hCG actually kind of basically goes right over that. It's like an overpass, like it doesn't matter. It just you're able
Right. It's the one and only diet that I really truly believe that addresses it and that causes, one to finally get that weight off. And I know it's really helped me.
And I love that you shared your story about kind of following along what your daughter and son-in-law were doing. And like you said, you were eating a little more calories, but maybe not too much more. So
right.
If it had been, just that, then you probably would have lost at least 20 pounds or 10.
I would have thought, yeah.
But you lost 2, which is like, wait a minute, something's not right.
Not right at all. No. So like I said, the hCG, that's why I was so faithful to the hCG when it was working, because it was the first thing ever to work for me.
That's great. So. And now how old were you when you started the protocol in 2011?
57. So I'm 62 now.
Gotcha. And I think I just want everyone to know that because a lot of women email me in the age range of premenopause, menopause, postmenopause, and they're like, can it work for me? Like, will I lose weight? And honestly, women do great, in
absolutely.
50s,
absolutely.
70s.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're living proof of that. Well, so you did these longer rounds after the first round, and it sounds like your breaks were fairly short.
Yeah, they were 3 weeks. I did the 3-week cycle, and then I think my drop company told me to add a week for each round that I did in P3 if I stayed within the window. And of course, I didn't go out of the window. I mean, I was like the best, super girl. And so Honestly, I don't think I really did 4 weeks completely. At times, I think I got too excited to go back and start again, get it off. But
Right, gotcha. What was I going to ask you about that? Oh, so my question to you is, if someone, because I do get people asking me about doing this, and I do see it to work sometimes, but then sometimes I see it to not do well for a person. What would you say are the pros and cons, or what a person should think about if they're going to consider doing like a longer round, like 60 days? What do you?
you have to be committed. That's what it comes down to. You have to be sold out that you want to do it. I didn't even want to stop. I stopped because I was told I had to. I know today some people keep going, but I took the breaks just like I was supposed to. But if your heart is not into it, I say stop, rest, give your body a rest, take some time off. It's a mental thing. If you're up for the challenge, I so mentally wanted to get it off and get it past me that I could have just kept going forever if I had to.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
perfect advice. That's exactly right, I think, because yeah, sometimes you're in the zone and you're ready, you're doing it, and yeah, then in that case, I think it was, I'm trying to think, it was episode 3 or 4 with Donna. She lost 127 pounds. She did the same thing, very short breaks, really long rounds. She lost 127 pounds. She's still doing good today. And yeah, so it's like if you can do that, that's great. But then just being honest with yourself, maybe for
Exactly.
everyone, if you're not in that place, because sometimes you're not, don't
Well,
force it.
with something that I thought was really funny is back then when I lost the weight, I was part of a support group with Sonia Russell, who had written the 800 calorie protocol, and there's a gentleman that started exactly the same time I did, and this is right when I had just finished and I had lost all my weight, and he wrote in a question asking a question about P3. He said, I've lost my 100 pounds. Now what do I do? And he had started in August. And I mean, everybody's like jaw dropped. And Sonia was like, oh my gosh, are you telling me you never took a break? But so he didn't. He went the 7 or 8 months, lost his 100 pounds. And now he was asking, I don't know whatever happened to him because I think everybody gave him such a hard time for not taking a break that he never responded again. But anyway, I thought it was very interesting that in the same amount of time, we both lost the exact same amount of weight, and that his was without taking a break, and mine was, taking the 4 breaks that I took. So
Right, gotcha. That's very interesting. So you went from 267 to 165, and now when you did phase 2, so were you doing the 500 calories or the 800 calories then?
I actually did. I started with 500, and then I think I went up to the drop company. Also said they said that their research had shown the same results by adding an extra protein at 700. So I think I did right what they said. I did 700 calories, so I added an extra protein. That was it.
Okay,
But it was
cool.
pretty similar.
That's cool. Now I'm curious, when you were doing the homeopathic drops, did you do them the 3 times a day?
Yes, yes.
And then whatever dosage they told you, however many drops, is that what you just stuck with and it felt fine, or did you ever adjust
I
it? Or
did. I didn't even know that there was such a thing that you could adjust drops or that your hunger might be one way or the other. I just I just did it. I just did what I was supposed to do, and I didn't really even think about it. Now I hear all these women saying, "I think I need to adjust," and I'm like, "Really?
yeah,
I didn't even know you could." Yeah.
that's cool. Okay, cool. That's good. And so you ended up doing about 700 calories for most of your journey then.
Hmm.
Now, when it came to phase 3, it sounds like you were also really strict about that. Did you do steak days then? How often did you have to do them?
No, I never did. I never went outside the 2 pound window because I was told that I had to start counting again if I went out of it. So I made sure I didn't. But I ate pretty much Atkins style, and that's how I've always done it. Atkins induction phase, I guess you would say. And but I didn't go crazy with the fats, but so I ate when I was hungry. I logged my food, but I never went by the charts because those charts always, for me, I have a slow metabolism, and I know that sometimes when they tell you by your height and weight and age, you can eat X amount of calories. I mean, that's never worked for me in the past. So I just always went by if I was hungry or not, and it worked. I never went out and always stabilized, well within like the first week. So.
Cool. Now I'm curious, with how you became overweight, and like you said, you were able to kind of just do what you were supposed to do, was for you becoming overweight, was that really just an issue with just diets not working and hormones being off, or do you feel like there
Um,
was any?
well, for me, and a lot of it now that I understand fully, it had to do with the lipedema. Lipedema came on in my teens during puberty, and so I always kind of had a weight issue, and I always battled it. And then I went to work for the airlines back in the day when they had weight restriction, and I was put on this incredibly low weight amount that I had to weigh in, and we could get spot checked at any time. So, I mean, I think, oh my gosh, if you could just bottle that up, that humiliation,
Oh,
bottle humiliation and sell it, it'd be the best diet aid out there. But, so I kept my weight off then because I had to. And after the birth of my third baby, it just, the weight just would not go away. My metabolism was so wrecked by that time.
gotcha.
And then the weight just started coming on, and I fought the whole way. I mean, I fought for 20 years. I dieted. It wasn't like I was like, oh, well, I'm just gonna, give in. But the more I dieted, it seemed like the bigger I got.
Gotcha. So it sounds like you really always ate pretty sensibly then. Like it really was just more of a medical
Right.
issue.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, I went for I wanted to have weight loss surgery, and I went to a local doctor, and they talked to me, and they said, you're not a good candidate because it's not really a case of overeating, it's more metabolism based. But they didn't really have any answers for me, like, well, do this instead of that. It's
Right.
just like, oh well, that's
Yeah.
just you. So.
Oh, that's very interesting. That's very interesting. So now on phase two, when you did your 700 calories, what kind of foods, I mean, it's been a while now, but what kind of foods did you eat, or did you kind of stick to the same thing, or did you do
I,
like
I basically I stuck to the same protocol. The only addition that I made, and I didn't even know it was really an addition, was there was a couple dark green vegetables that they had on their list that I thought were in the original, like such things as broccoli, and so that's basically. And then I think I tried Greek yogurt now and then, but I didn't really do well with it because there were several other ladies that were eating the non-fat Greek yogurt. But other than that, I pretty much stayed, right in the same protocol as the original one, just with an extra protein.
Gotcha. So now
Yeah.
for maintenance these days, because it's been about 4 years since you lost that bulk of your weight, right? So,
Right.
and then you said you occasionally like gain a little if you go on vacation, and then you'll do a short round. Can you kind of tell us what that little process?
Well, that would be, yeah. Well, we like to do cruising, so we'll take a cruise. Like I did, I was very proud of myself. I did a 28-day cruise to Tahiti and back, and came back weighing the same amount. So I thought
Wow,
that was pretty good.
that's amazing. Now, how
But
did you do that? How did you do, like, what was your little tactics?
well, the first thing I had to realize is I can't eat the bread when the guy comes around the table with the yummy smelling rolls, but I don't do that. And then I allow myself one or two desserts on the whole trip. Before, I would have eaten the bread and then had a full dessert with lunch and a dessert with dinner like they do. And that's how people end up coming home 10 pounds heavier on a 7-day cruise because they have all those things available. And then, I mean, it just hit me one day, just because they offer it, it doesn't mean you have to have it. So I pick and choose. I mean, I decide when I'm going to eat something and when it's going to be. And then I talk about my philosophy is I like to have a savings plan. If I know I'm going to eat a piece of cheesecake for dessert, I save my calories for the day and then I eat it because the borrowing from tomorrow never seems to work. So it's better to do the savings plan, save a few calories, eat what you're going to eat, and then go back. But I would say for the last 4 or 5 years, I would pretty much eat more P3 style with some regular goodies thrown in and on occasion. And I don't really, I mean, I eat normal, I think. In fact, my daughter mentioned to me that I had been on a diet now for 5 years. And I thought, really? I don't think that at all. It's just my lifestyle has changed and my eating has changed. And I watch what I eat. And I'll say no to things when other people are eating pizza. I'll say, no, not today. And sometimes I do eat it, but not like if it was brought home, and I would just automatically eat it before I even realized I was eating it.
Right.
So
Gotcha.
that's changed.
So you make choices, and then in everyday life now, so it sounds like you do have carbs.
Hmm.
Is that like an everyday thing or just once a week or?
Refined carbs are pretty much on special occasions, like once a week, or like if we go out to eat, I'll get a protein style hamburger,
Gotcha.
and I won't eat French fries.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool. That's
And
good.
that's pretty much day. I don't think I've eaten a bun, and I don't know the last time, except a protein bun. Now I've made those. But
Cool. Yeah, I'm actually the same way. For me, it's like it has to be worth it. So,
exactly.
like when
Yeah.
I go to the grill, I just buns, like that's just a waste of
Right.
to me. But I do love fries, so I always get a bunless burger and I can eat fries. So that's
Uh-huh.
my, you know, I don't want to have all of the carbs, so I just pick the one I really want.
Exactly. Exactly. Same with me.
Yeah.
And so like I mean I like things like lasagna, and I tell people I like to celebrate food, but it has to be, it's a celebration. It's just not something that I just gobble down anymore just to get rid of.
Right.
If I'm going to do that, if I'm in a hurry, I'm just going to eat something like a yogurt or something that is going to fill me up, that it's just like just something healthy that's not going to hurt me.
Gotcha.
But when I eat something like a carb meal, it's a special occasion. I'm going to celebrate it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Now, with your regular maintaining, I'm just kind of trying to curious how much you're eating on a daily basis. So, are you eating just mostly to hunger, or do you have an idea of about how many calories you eat in a day, or?
I used to be really good, really faithful with my Fitness Pal, but the last couple of years I haven't been. But I pretty much I always eat the same thing. Like for breakfast, if I eat breakfast, it'll be a 1 egg, 3 white omelet type thing, or something like that. And then lunch, it'll be a protein and a salad, or and dinner is kind of like the same way. So with maybe a little something thrown in, but it's pretty much. So I guess my calories would be around 15, probably right around there.
Cool. That's pretty good,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah, yeah, that's good. I was always curious about that. And it's nice actually if you don't have to count calories, you know? I like when I can talk to people who aren't having to do that in order to maintain, just
Right, and see, I never want to be like that, where I'm like, I've had people say, "Oh, well, I didn't get all my calories in." And I'm like, "What do you mean? You eat when you're hungry."
right. It's just a nicer freedom, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Like when I cook, for instance, it's like I put olive oil in the pan to saute meat or something. I'm like, I can't imagine having to measure everything in order to be able to know how many calories is in it. So for me, that's
Exactly.
what's overwhelming. Like I just want to be able to cook and not count everything.
And that's how I am too. And I think for me, I'm in the food business. I work as a caterer, so I'm around food all the time, and it's lost its appeal to me. Where, I used to think. Now this is really bad, but I don't know if other people can relate to this. But say I got an invitation to a wedding, the first thing I would think about is, oh, what are we going to eat? Instead of going, oh, what a wonderful celebration I get to be a part of. So,
Right.
and I realized, there's something really wrong with you if you're thinking about, what are they going to
Just the
serve?
food.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and now I've been around food so much that that's like the last thing I think about. And I think that's really, for me, it's been so freeing, because I've seen enough pastries to last a lifetime, and they no longer have any kind of pull towards me. It's like, yeah, they'll always be there.
Yeah,
So.
that's really great. What do you think helped you to like develop that outlook?
Just being around it so much, seeing it, and then seeing the waste. Where it used to be. Well, see, I was a mom too for years, and you never wanted to throw anything away off your kid's plate, and so you always became the garbage disposal. But when you're around so much food like that, and you see it, and you have to just get rid of it, then you lose that attachment. Like, oh, I better do something with this. So.
That's cool. I'm curious now with cooking and eating, and do you cook for family or uh,
Not a whole lot, and I'm really bad. And my family's pretty much grown, but we have, extended family staying with us. But my poor husband, I used to cook for him all the time, and now it's like,
himself kind of?
he does,
Yeah,
he
my
does.
husband does too, actually.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
does that a lot. He's always, and he'll cook for me too, which is great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm actually, it's kind of interesting. The survey that I did for the phase 3 program I'm trying to do, that was actually one of the funny things that came out of it. A lot of, like a large percentage are married, like over 70%, and a lot of them are mothers with children living at home. So I'm like, okay, most families are at least three people then, right? 3 to 4 to 5. But then when I asked how many servings do you need your dinner to serve and your lunch, almost all of them were like 1 to 2 people. I thought, wait a minute, it's half a family. Why do you only need a dinner that serves? And I talked about this with another nutritionist, and she's like, "Oh, that makes sense." She's like, "I make like 3 different meals. Like my kids don't eat the same thing I do. My husband has his
Exactly.
own meal." And I'm like, "You know what? We're like that too, but I thought we were just weird." So I guess, that's actually more of the common thing these days.
Right. And my husband knows that I eat strange things, so he'll.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know I don't eat gluten and I don't eat sugar. So my husband eats gluten and sugar. So he's like, "That's okay. I don't really want your smoothie. I'll make my own thing." So interesting. Okay, great. Well, why don't we talk a little bit now about your the post weight loss surgeries that you've done, because I think that'll be really interesting for others, because you lost over 100 pounds. What were the problems that you noticed from having that much weight loss?
Well, the first thing I noticed was my face was really drooping and I had jowls that I'd never had before. And I did have a lot of neck skin because I guess, I lost a lot of weight up here and my arms and I had those bat wing arms.
Gotcha.
Oh, really bad. And so I did that, and I also there was nothing left in the breast. So, I did the 3 surgeries at once. I did the breast, the lower face and neck, and the arms all at once. And that was great. I was very happy with that. And
What's the recovery like with that?
I think, it takes a couple weeks to really before you can go back to work. It took a full month. My face was very easy. I mean, I just had a couple little slight bruises down here. You couldn't really see much. I didn't have the eyes done or the upper, so I think that's why the face was so easy. But they took away the jowls and like I said, that healed in a couple weeks. The arms, I wore a compression arm sleeve, which gave me a lot of strength. I wore those for 3 months. I didn't even want to take them off because I was like nervous, like, oh, I'm going to rip my arms, but I didn't. It was fine. And so that was pretty easy. The healing was really easy with that. And then the following year, I went back and I did what's called a lower body lift. And that's where they basically, it sounds really bad, but it's not as bad as it sounds. It's a tummy tuck that goes all the way around, but they kind of like cut you in half and pull you up and take away the extra.
Oh,
And I was amazed. That one was just a couple weeks, and I was getting around pretty good.
wow,
So.
that's interesting. Now, how long were those procedures? Like, how long did the procedure take?
What the lower body lift was like 8 or 9 hours. It was there was a lot to that one. That was a long surgery. That's what they tell me. I was out. And the other surgery, I think the 3 combo one, I think that was like 4 to 6 hours. And yeah, and so now I'm going back for one more, and I'm going to, I'm going to do the long thigh lift, which will be a cut from the inner thigh down to the knee, and they'll take all the excess skin and pull it really tight. And I'm hoping for that towards the end of this summer.
Gotcha.
And that'll be my last one.
Cool. And
Yeah.
so when they did the procedure, like how much, like, because with all that skin, I'm assuming there was actually some weight loss in a sense because of how much the skin weighs. How was I was curious about
Well, you know what? I was thinking that too, but it really didn't.
you're like
I'm waiting for that. Actually, what's really funny is after you have surgery, and if you weigh yourself, you'll find that
swollen.
you're up like 5 to 10
That's
pounds, and
normal. Yeah.
Mhm. And then you have this enormous appetite, which they tell you have to eat a lot of protein to heal.
Oh,
And so
interesting.
you're really hungry. Everyone tells me that, it's very common. You get real hungry and you eat a lot. And so anyway, I thought I would go under. I thought I would have lost more, but I pretty much maintained. It's
Yeah. Well, I'm curious then, since that's interesting what you said about being really hungry because your body has so much to heal, I'm assuming,
hmm
right?
Right.
So how did you manage that in a proper way that didn't cause you to just like gain a bunch of weight?
Well, I ate lots of protein, like I said, and I did eat some comfort things because when you're in that state and you're kind of like bed rest or resting for a week or two, and I tell myself every time I have a surgery, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah,
No more comfort food,
yeah,
because I want to see the scale drop. And so this last time in January, I did some liposuction to get ready for the thigh lift. I did it in conjunction with having the lipedema. They took out some of those lipedema cells, and I made sure that this time I didn't eat any comfort food, and I was able to drop about. Again, first I went up like 5 pounds, right after surgery, and it's taken a while, but I lost about 13, 14 pounds. So that's why I said I'm on the lower end, and I would love to go into surgery weighing about 155. That's like kind of like my goal. That's what I'm trying for.
yeah. No, that's so interesting. So you had more protein when you felt that way. That is
Yeah, they
great.
tell you need to eat protein for healing.
Yeah,
So,
very interesting.
yeah.
I wonder if I'm just curious about this because you know how I do weightlifting with CrossFit and stuff, and I find that I feel like I eat a pretty high calorie diet. I don't actually count, but I can tell
Right.
that I like my husband. He's like, yeah, I think you eat more than I do, and he's 6 feet tall, and I'm 5'1". I'm like, how is it that I can eat this much and not gain weight, And I feel like that must have something to do with it because when you work out, you break down your muscles essentially.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
your body needs calories to rebuild. And I feel like if you're in a constant state of rebuilding, your body has a use for extra calories. You know what I mean?
Exactly, exactly, right.
And
And
that's
so that's
so
why people
similar.
that aren't doing much, if you're not active, then you don't need to eat as much. And
Yeah.
yeah, it
That's
all comes in.
Now, for anyone who is interested in checking out these types of procedures, it sounds like you have some good tips on like what to look for in a doctor or what questions to ask.
Oh, totally. The thing that really helped me is I went to a site. There's called Real Self, and it's a review site where you can go on and you can talk with other women that have had the same procedures that you're going to have. That's how I ended up finding my last two surgeons that I used, and they have reviews, and you'll find out and you can see pictures because so many times if you find out about a plastic surgeon, you go to his website, you're only going to see the best of the best, and you're not going to see anything that maybe didn't turn out the way it should, or you're not going to find out that he was not very bedside friendly or whatever it is. And so you go to some of these sites like that, support groups, and you'll get the real inside story. And the thing that I did learn after the fact is that you really need to find a surgeon that specializes in post weight loss patients.
Gotcha.
Um, every plastic surgeon will do a tummy tuck, which is fine, and they all do the basics, but then there are certain ones that are specialized in people that have lost like 100 pounds or more, because that's a whole nother deal. Knowing if you don't know how to make those nips and tucks or whatever, you're going to end up with things they call there's a term they call dog ears, which is that's a pulling of an area where you're it's like sewing when you try to put a pattern together and you haven't cut it out right and it doesn't all fit, and and people end up like that. They
Like
end
these
up with these
puckers.
puckers. Exactly. Yeah. And I have a few puckers, on my arms, that little bit that if I had gone to a better surgeon, I wouldn't have them, but I didn't know. And so there's a lot of things I picked up along the way. And towards the end, I found out that I needed to go to a top specialist who specializes in post weight loss. And that's who I found. And he's great. His name is Dr. Peter Fisher out of San Antonio. And the thing that was so neat about that particular doctor is that his prices he's got some of the best pricing because his passion is helping women that have lost a lot of weight, and he knows that it's something that insurance companies don't cover. So he's worked on keeping it affordable,
Oh,
which is really neat, because I also, and I would always tell women to go to 2 or 3 surgeons and get consultations with them to, to see how, and you'll know who you really like. And for instance, I went to one doctor who is also known as one of the top in this field, and he was really good. And I took a trip out to Beverly Hills and went out and had a consultation, but his charge was, without exaggeration, his charge was 4 times as much.
Wow.
Yeah, so you'll find pricing can be all over the map, and a lot of it has to do with the map, with where they're located, Beverly Hills. But yeah, and the other thing that I realized is that it's very common for women to travel to have surgery, to actually find to have a surgeon in your own city is very rare. I mean, you're very fortunate to find one. To find one that really specializes, you generally are going to need to plan a 2-week trip out of town around a vacation.
Gotcha.
That's because you have to go to someone that is very knowledgeable, or you'll end up with those things like dog ears and things that just didn't fit right, because it's, if you can imagine, if you have all that skin and you're going to have to cut it, and they really have to know exactly, and like there's things such as where to put the cut, because the cut will cause it to pull and causing sagging and all sorts of things that you just wouldn't think of, and that a regular plastic surgeon might not be familiar with. So it's very important.
Gotcha. I hear those little voices in the background.
Yeah.
So was the site realself.com? REAL?
Yes, realself.com.
Okay,
and you can and all you have to do is put in, say, tummy tuck or breast lift or, facelift, and all these different ones will come up, and you can read people's stories. They'll have before and after pictures, and they'll tell you complete stories. They'll tell you, I stayed out I traveled in, and this is the hotel I stayed at. There's just a wealth of information that you get from these women that have gone before you.
Great, thank you. That's great. That'll be really helpful for everyone, and especially the need to eat more, but do protein, which hopefully will keep us satiety, so you don't freak out and eat a bunch of other stuff.
Right.
You shouldn't eat. Cool. Very good. Well, I think that was pretty useful, everything we covered. I don't know, is there anything else, any other tips regarding hCG that you'd like to share with others that
no, I think that that's it. It's one of my favorite things to discuss with people. I really watch my words around people, because not all of them understand it, but it's kind of like, I feel like I'm on a mission almost with the lipedema community, to try to bring it to these women's attention that there is something that's going to help you, because so much when you get a diagnosis like that, you think that that there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
But there are things that you can do, and hCG has definitely proven that to me.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you had said, again, just for anyone else who's wondering, the lipedema, it's characterized by having, you're smaller on top but just abnormally large on bottom.
And there's 4 phases to that. The first phase 1, these women maybe they're not really that large, but they have a lot of pain in their legs and a lot of bruising. And that was me. I always had pain in my leg, and I had bruising, and I never knew that was tied in. But as time goes on, then more of the fat tissue expands, and people get bigger and bigger. And if it's not addressed, it can turn into lymphedema, which is like that elephantitis, swelling of the legs. And actually, that's something that my mom had, and we never knew the reason behind it. And now I know that lipedema can be hereditary. We just all thought we had my mom's body shape.
Yeah.
We did, but we didn't know that there was a reason behind it. And so you don't necessarily have to be that large on the bottom, but if you have a lot of the tattletale signs, such as bruising and maybe fat pockets around the knees, or just something that's not quite right, or another tattletale sign that just happened to me last year is you'll get like a little ridge around the top of your ankles, which kind of almost feels like you've worn socks too tight.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
But you're not wearing socks, and for some, as the disease can progress, it'll become really large. But for me, I just had just a little slight indentation, and I was like, this is weird, what's this from? And then it turns out that's what it was. So
wow, that's so crazy.
But once they get rid of the fat cells, they don't come back. So the sooner they can take them out, the better you are.
Gotcha. Cool.
So that's why liposuction right now, they do a water-assisted liposuction, and that currently that's the best and the only treatment really for getting rid of it.
Water,
Getting rid of it totally.
gotcha. Water assisted liposuction.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Good. That's been really great info for everybody. Thank you.
Well, thanks.
That's
Yeah, my
awesome.
pleasure.
Yeah. And I congratulations on kind of maintaining within that small range for so long now.
Thanks.
You know?
Yeah, I read right after losing the weight that 85% of Americans will gain back their weight, and many will gain back more. And I told myself, you are going to be part of the 15% come hell or high water, and that's my goal, and that's what I know I will never gain it back.
That's great. It's nice when you feel that confidence, you know. For me, it's been 3.5 years, and so yeah, it's that same feeling where you're like, wow, I've done this long enough now, and what I'm doing is working. So you feel like you don't feel anxious about the future because you know what you're doing is working.
Right, right. And you know you have the answers to case, and you don't let things get away from you.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a
And the
good point
scale is
too.
my friend.
Yeah,
I don't always like it, but it's my friend.
it lets you know, right? Like you said,
Yeah,
sometimes you choose to indulge, sometimes you don't, and knowing what you actually weigh helps you know when is a good time to indulge and when it isn't, you know?
right, exactly. And I know that even when I've gone like on vacations or gone out and I've eaten and maybe I'm up 3 pounds, if I don't lose it within 2 days, then I start to take action because I'll adjust back down by normal eating again.
Yeah, that's great. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much,
Oh, you're
Diane.
welcome.
Yeah, and then for the rest of you guys, this was episode 37. I'm going to be putting some of the things she said, like the website, some of the tips, in the show notes. So you can go to success stories on hcgchica.com and you'll be able to find that information and see links and stuff. And yeah, that's it. Thank you guys for listening.